and it
Yeah,
says,
sugar post it.
remember that I'm fast. So it's something Lauren actually said it, and I love the way she put it. She said, in all her years working in traditional publishing and now working for herself for 7 years, she has never met another Alice. She says, if I publish for another 40 years, I doubt I will meet another Alice. So that really put it into perspective for me, that in all this time, she's never met anyone with my speed and my energy and my So I'm like, okay, fine, I'm a unicorn. So I have my note that says, I write fast, that my books are long, and that the team is big. So the amount of people who are working on making my book wonderful are large. And I have to keep that in mind, because by going through Lauren, when I was in my publishing, I actually have a senior editor who I laugh hysterically because my senior editor's name is SE. Yeah, and her name is not actually senior editor, but I like to tell myself that it is. But Essie is like my older sibling, where they are there when I'm panicking, when I'm crying about I don't like someone's edits, or I'm freaking out about something. I email Essie. Essie talks me down, and then Essie solves the problem for me. But so the beauty of Essie too is that when I'm struggling, Essie will bring Lauren in when necessary to calm me down, or will go and talk to people. They're like my mediator kind of person. But I love that about this team, because it does mean that when I'm getting feedback on my my covers, or Essie is also the person who writes my copy on the back of my book and that kind of thing. But when we're getting feedback, it's not just Lauren who's helping me. SE is giving input as well. So there were lots of times in the process with the cover, with the writing and things, Essie would catch something that Lauren wouldn't catch. I think Essie was the one who spotted the crown, the water crown on the character immediately when we got it. And I was like, oh, I love the crown. And Essie was like, me too. And Lauren was like, there's a crown. And then you went and looked, so when we have 3 people working on everything, I like that better, because I've got the creative mind. Lauren has like the marketing and the boss kind of mind. And then Essie is like our translator. So when we're both in our own little worlds, Essie, like, we'll be in meetings and Lauren and I will be like chatting, and Essie will be like, guys, come back down. We have to talk about this. So
Essie's like, we have 10 minutes left.
She keeps us going, and she keeps us in control, but also she's really great. They are really great to have, because Essie gives me the courage to be able to talk about things when something is stressing me, and gave me the courage to be able to be like, why is this taking so long? And then I got my explanation, and now that I know, I understand. Because for me, I'm watching other fantasy authors who are publishing books like every 2 months or something. But then I have to remember that I'm trying to produce the highest quality that I'm able to, and quality takes time. Like I've had Sam edit my books, Jackie, Brian, someone else, I forget the other person now, those
are the main ones.
Yeah, but so I've had all these different editors.
You've had Essie writing your copy.
And Essie writing my copy. Yeah, and Shannon has also touched parts on it too. Like all these different people have had their hands in my book. And because so many people are working on it, it takes longer. Because even when we're looking at something like the cover, for example, they send the cover to us, and then Lauren looks at it and gives notes and feedback. Essie looks at it, gives notes and feedback, and then I get it. And the thing is, they give a timeline that is normal. They give like 3-4 days for people who are working and don't have the time. Whereas Alice opens the file, looks at it, immediately knows what I do and do not like, responds and sends it in. And then I'm like, why is it still taking 5 days? I responded in an hour. And Lauren's like, because we've scheduled it with the other people that they will get it in that time. Just because you can do it faster doesn't mean we could automatically redo your entire schedule every time you send something in quicker. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. As someone who scheduled for 15 years in university, I really understood that aspect. So.
But I'll tell you, Alice, like it's interesting because your speed is unique to you, but actually having those feelings around the timeline is so common. And I would say it's the biggest struggle that we have with people when we're publishing them, because, you know, we're saying to them, hey, listen, there's so much that you are not seeing that's happening behind the scenes that, like, if we had to explain everything, it would take forever, right? So there's a certain point when it's like, you've hired us, we're going to take care of it, we'll let you know when things come up, but ultimately we got it. You know, you can go into we run everything through Asana. If you really want to, you can go into Asana and see everything that's happening, but
I do
ultimately which you do absolutely.
There are 4 books in Asana right now.
That's right but that's good, because then you can see, okay, well, where is everything, what's going on? You know, you can have that without having to like do status meetings or things like that. But ultimately people always want things faster, and you know, that's a really common thing to have to say. Listen, you're working with us because you want to do this right, because you want to do this to the top quality, because you want to sell this book for the next 10, 20 years. You know, maybe one day we do a new forward or something, you know, a little, an author's note, and we re-release it, you know. But ultimately what you're creating is something that people are not going to be like writing in and saying, wow, I really think that this was rushed. No one's going to ever say that this was rushed, you know. And you will see, you know, I hope I'm not insulting anyone in this room right now, but you know, you do see books that are self-published where they didn't go that route and they rushed things and they didn't bring on a team, or, you know, they kind of did things in a really strong, like DIY way. And it's like, well, then that's when you're going to get that feedback. That's when you're going to say, I have to redo this, or, hey, listen, I'm not really happy putting my name on this anymore. That's one of the biggest things. It's, I want to create a book that we are all happy to have, to be associated with, and to have our names on. And most importantly, that's for you as the author, you know, your name's on that thing.
Mm-hmm. And I
will say, it stands for something.
Like, I read a lot of indie books because as an indie author I do, and I read a lot of stuff on Kindle Unlimited, and I've seen some fantastic books that people did by themselves, and they just have like a natural talent, or they're one of those people who are like grammar Nazis in school and they can do that amazing. I have a couple friends who declare themselves as that, and they have phenomenal grammar and it always turns out well, and they have a natural talent for writing. But then there's other people who they don't have that. Like, I do not have a perfection when I write, and you need to know where your weaknesses are, and you need to make sure that if you have a budget when you're editing and you don't have a lot of money, you have to figure out where is your weakest point and make sure that's where you're putting your money in. Because I understand not everybody has the budget I do, but if you know that your struggle is with the grammar or with the line editing, so your writing flows, and that you got to make sure that that is where you are putting your money to get it done. Because there are
I actually disagree with that.
Really? What do you disagree? Tell me what your opinion is then.
If you have a really limited budget and you can only put your money towards, let's say, one thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I would actually say the developmental edit is the most important thing, because the line edit comes later and it's about perfecting what's already there. But if you don't have a good story to begin with, all the line edits in the world are not going to make it good, and it's not going to get people to read it. So ultimately, you've got to make sure that you actually have a story that is compelling, is told well, and is reaching your audience. And that's all done in a developmental edit. So I actually think that's the most important edit. Yeah.
Because for me, once I start the book, I'm odd in that, because once I start it, I'm going to finish it, even if I hate it. I've read enough books in literature and university that I had to read books that were terrible books that I didn't want to read. I've read Canterbury Tales, so I'm like, I've read Beowulf. I will get through whatever you make me read. But it's one of those cases
very
where
unusual on that one.
I am unusual for that. I can force myself to read anything.
But also, would you recommend it to others if it wasn't a good story?
No, but I also wouldn't recommend it to others if I struggle getting through it reading wise, because knowing that I have weak grammar, if I'm finding problems in your flow and your grammar, it's bad.
That's true. That's true.
So for me, like, the story,
well, maybe what it is, you know, maybe have the budget for both, you know, try as much as you can, you know. I will always say, whenever someone tries to come in and say, oh, I just want a line edit, the answer, we say no. We say no. We say you have to go through that developmental edit first. Because what'll happen is the line editor will come back to me and say, I can't edit this. It can't be edited because it hasn't gone through that developmental edit. It has to go through that first. So, you know, if you're only going to invest in a few things, then really it's that. And the other thing I'll say too is, if you're on a really limited budget, no one says that you have to do this quickly. There's a version where you can say, okay, like I have some authors who do it this way, who say, okay, I'm going to go through the developmental edit. I'm going to really take my time in the revision after, and I'll come back when I have the finances ready to do the next edit, you know, and that could be a year from now, you know. If you have the budget, you can go a little faster, but ultimately, if that's the case, then, you know, that's fine, you know. So that's what I would do. I would just say, you know what, just drink, you know, what do they say? You've got 3 things and you're able to, if you want to cut back on one of them, then like it affects the other 2. So it's what, time, money, and quality?
Quality. I'm thinking that mom triangle where you can have happy children, you can have a clean house, or you can have
sanity.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, right. So I guess in terms of like creating a book, you can have, like, if you want it quickly and you want it done well, then you need to pay for that. If you don't have a lot of money, but you want it done well. Okay, then time is what we play with.
Yep.
You know, okay, we're going to stretch out the time, you know? So it's sort of like you can play those things off of each other, I guess is the point.
Especially because if you self-edit things and you need to leave time in between editing it. Like that's one thing I find too, is that by the time you guys are done with a developmental edit and you throw it back at me, I'm like, what is this book again? Because I've gone ahead so far. Like I'm getting ready to get book 2 back. Book 3 back from the first developmental edit at the end of the week or next week. And I'm like, what happens in book 3? I'm writing book 4 right now. And I mean, we just finished book 2's line edit. And I'm just like,
you have to get back into the world of it. Yeah. Which
is great, because when I get it back, I'm going to be like, oh yeah. And then you go in with fresh eyes. And that's when you catch things you didn't catch before. I think someone says that I know quite a few people who do a lot of it themselves. And they say when they finish a draft, they put it in a drawer for 2 to 3 months before they go in and do that first.
That's a long time.
It is, but that means you forget everything. So when you start reading it again, you see the little things you did not catch. Because I have read this book, when we were editing it, I read this thing so many times for the copy edit. I literally could tell you what the next line was before I even read it, which is bad when you're trying to find like typos, because you don't find nothing. So I gave mine to a bunch of my ARC readers, the last draft, and was like, can you help me find typos? Because I cannot find any more. Because my
it's also the reason that we have. Yeah, it's also the reason that we have a proofreader as someone completely who hasn't seen the book before.
Yeah.
You know, when they're coming in that last piece. That's absolutely right.
My favorite, the mistake we found was the word but his did not have a space. So I've been joking a lot with my friends. What is a buttus? What is a buttus? My favorite.
I love that. So I want to make sure we hit everything that we wanted to chat about, which, I mean, now you're at the point where, all right, so you've got the ebook versions of book 1, which is The Head, the Heart, and the Heir, and your prequel, which is a collection of short stories, The Spare Who Became the Heir. Yes. Do you want to talk, I feel like you're the best person to really talk about the marketing that you've been doing around those things. And I'll also just side note that by saying we're going to have paperback and hardcover coming out later this summer.
Yes, we are.
So you have that to look forward to. But do you want to talk about a little bit about what you did in terms of, you did some galleys, some ARCs, you sent those out. For those who don't know, those are just advanced reader copies of the book. Alice chose to do them digitally, which is, I think, best when you are keeping it outside of like the New York Times. If you don't need them to review your book, you might as well just do digital. Why don't you talk a little bit about your just marketing efforts and everything you've done on that front?
So when I started meeting Lorna, that I went into an online conference called Women in Publishing, and I did that. And they talked a lot too about setting yourself up on social media before your book comes out, which I thought was kind of silly myself, but I had already joined Bookstagram, and was already doing book reviews and that, because I figured I want to attract readers. So I'm going to go and talk about books with people who like to talk about books. And so when I learned that you should start talking about your book well in advance of your book coming out, I started Mythology Mondays and Writing Wednesdays, and I would talk about my books on those days specifically. And so one thing I did, because I'm a paranoid person, I copyrighted my book in Canada so that the story and the characters in that were copyrighted already before I started this process. So I knew in 2020, I have the copyright certificate from the Canadian government that it's mine. And then I started talking about my characters and my plot and my story and what mythology I used. And I've kind of gone cyclical, where I would go through 6 months of reviewing the different types of mythology and for the characters and the sorcerers and that. And then I would start it over again for all the new people who are now on my social media. But so I got a lot of people interested in it. And then I got them to join my other social media. So I have TikTok, I have Instagram, I have, what's it called? A newsletter. And I just recently in the last few months added YouTube, where I do longer videos. So instead of doing the 1 minute that you can do on Bookstagram and on Book Talk, I go like 5-6 minutes talking about my mythology there, where you can see the full length of it. And the same thing with book reviews. I can rant about what I didn't like in a book review much longer when I have 3 or 4 minutes than when I just
So, we clearly like to talk a lot. I mean, we're on our second live right now.
But so I started doing that. And then as I built more readers, I got them to join my newsletter by sending out what are called reader magnets. So I gave them free short stories that told the history and that of my characters in my world. I just got them to get excited about the book itself, which is why I had so many of these. At the point we decided to put the book forward, I had written 6, but I only sent out 2 or 3 of them when I gave it to Lauren so that she could then start the editing process. But I continued to send them out for free. And then we made a digital copy of it, which you can still get from my website for free by signing up for my newsletter. That's the reason this book is not on Kindle Unlimited, is because for Kindle Unlimited, you cannot give the book away anywhere else. And the digital copy of The Spare Who Became the Heir is free for signing up for my newsletter, or for people who don't want to sign up for my newsletter or who just want to help support any authors, they can download it from Amazon as well. But we started that process, and then what I did to get my readers, I had my beta team already from before. I emailed them first and said, you guys got the really, really rough draft back in 2020. Whoever wants to come on and get the new draft, the updated draft, I'd love to have you. So a bunch of them signed up. And then I made a Facebook group page. Like, I asked the ARC readers, like, how long. I made a form, and in addition to inviting my beta readers, I invited people on TikTok and Instagram and some different groups that I was in for fantasy readers on Facebook that I loved and that people are really interactive in. And they said, who wants to take a risk on my ARC? And then I put up a form and I asked questions like, how long would they need? 2 months, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, that kind of thing. I asked, what's your favorite subgenre, fantasy? Where would you post the review? And like, when you get the ARC and you do that. And I collected all of this information from them. And then that way I knew where my ARC readers were coming from, number one, and the majority of them come from TikTok. And then I also knew how long people needed. So what I did is I sent out the most up-to-date version we had at 8 weeks and sent that to the people who needed the longest amount of time. As a mom of 3 kids, I get that some people cannot guarantee to read this monstrosity in like 3 weeks. So I sent it out at 8 weeks. And then that one had a little more typos in. So one person reviewed and was like, there were still quite a few typos, but I think it's because I got the 8-week arc. And I'm like, yes, it is. And then the 6-week arc was better. And then the 4-week arc had the cover on it and was the official one done by Lauren, which is technically called a galley. The difference between mine and hers was that I made mine on vellum. And then hers is the official one that looks like what is inside the book and is the one that is now available on Amazon. None of them had the bonus chapters because we were still working on line editing and finishing the chapters for book 2, because I was insistent that we put the sneak peeks in the book as well. So that was one more thing we had to add on and get edited and work through. But then I sent them out to people, and I just sent them out to everybody. And then I realized I had asked on TikTok recently how long people needed, and a ton of people there said they didn't even need a month. So then I went back on TikTok. I was like, hey, does anybody else still want an ARC? And I got another like 100 people from that. So I ultimately had about 400 people who requested the ARC. And because it's my first book, and I really wanted to get this thing in as many hands as possible for people, I let everybody who asked for it get it. I think about 275 downloaded it. So that's how many people actually read the ARC, or at least accepted the ARC. I don't know how many have edited them, but that's why I have like 90 something reviews on Goodreads. And I think I have 5 or 6 now on BookBub, and Amazon. I have 21 in the US, like 4 in Australia, 3 in Canada, 3 in the UK. Like, I have all these different reviews everywhere because I gave a ton of them out. And I figured, you know what, if they tell one friend, I know a lot of people are afraid to do ARCs because they think, well, then they won't buy the book. But I've had one ARC reader who came back and was like, I love your book. I'm so obsessed with this. I have 6 friends that are going to buy it because I told them they all need to read it. So my theory was, if every one of my ARC readers told one friend on average, then I would have that like 275 people already who would want to buy it.
That's an investment.
Exactly. And I knew that my alpha reader had told me, she's like, I've already got 8 people I'm buying it for. So it's like, and I've had other people who wrote back and were like, I love it. I'm going to buy it for, like, I've had older people like my age who are like, oh, I'm going to buy it for my niece. And someone who's like in her 50s, like, I'm buying it for my granddaughter. It's fantastic. Like, I've had all these people come back, and I've even had some of my ARC readers who have like, I already ordered a signed copy, or they went and ordered a paperback because they're like, this beauty needs to sit on my shelf. And so then I have no problem giving them away, because I also understand that when you are writing a series, I don't expect book 1 to make back my money for my edits and that. I think it's going to take a little bit of time. And because I know I'm writing a series, I know that book 1 will keep selling when we publish book 2. And in fact, people who love book 1 will then go buy book 2. But in the meantime, other people will come and find book 1, or will discover my prequel, and will then carry on in the series. So once book 3 is out, you know, everyone who read 1 and 2 and is obsessed will then buy book 3 immediately. But then in that time, some people will see their friends reading book 3 and will then wander their way back to book 1. So I'm playing the long game with this. And so I had goals of like how many reviews I wanted on Goodreads. I wanted 100, and I think I'm at like 92 as of yesterday. So I'm this close to that one, and I'm very excited about that. Amazon, I wanted 50 by the end of the year, because I know that Amazon puts your book in a different category. If you have over 50 reviews, they take it a little bit more seriously. So that's my goal for that. And I'm working my way towards it slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And so that was part of my marketing. I also did a couple of interviews with some different people.
Actually, can I pause you there? I
Yeah.
want to chat about the arcs as well. So
Yeah.
one thing I loved about you, Alice, is that normally that speech about why it's really important and it's a good thing to actually give away your book for free in the beginning as an arc, that's something I have to tell authors usually in the beginning. And I love that you came in already with that perspective, because it's absolutely true. What you're really trying to do is grassroots marketing at that point. You're trying to get people excited about your book, and you're trying to get them talking in their communities. Honestly, with everything, this is what's so interesting. Even with everything on social media and everything that's online, whether it's book reviews or book talk or Bookstagram or whatever it is, the number one way that people find new books is word of mouth. And it has been for years, and it always will be. It is word of mouth. So what you have to do is get people excited about your book. And so that's one of the reasons that I cannot stress highly or strongly enough that quality is the most important thing, because no one is going to be out there talking about your book if they didn't think it was actually good. They're not going to say to their good friend who has really good taste, hey, I think you should read this book, because that's going to make them look bad if it's not a good book or if it's not a good rec. So it has to be top quality in order to get that kind of energy around your book.
Yeah.
And then there are things that you can, so like first getting that quality there is the most important thing. Then there are those things that you can do to get that word of mouth kind of swirling around it. And that's why I love that you took that ARC campaign to new heights. I love that you did that. And it's really paying off. We're seeing that pay off with Goodreads. We're seeing that pay off with Amazon. Exactly. It all just kind of spreads from there. It's like a virus in the best of ways. Sorry if that's too soon.
Not for me.
Too soon of a joke.
Not in this case. But one thing I will say too is know that even when you do the best with your arcs, and even when you have a quality book, you're still going to get negative reviews. I have a 2-star review. I don't care. Like, I really don't care. Like, someone was like, I don't like it, I couldn't read it, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's fine. That's okay. That's your thing. I'm a reader reviewer. I really, like, I'm not afraid to hate on a book if I don't like it. So I'm like, you know what? I dish it out. I got to take it. And so somebody did not like it, and they're like, I DNF'd it. So I'm like, that's okay. That's fine. You didn't love it. That's cool. I'm like, there are 91 other people who agree, who think it's great. So I'm good with you not liking it. And that's okay. And so even when, like, for everybody who's writing and is afraid of that, just know you are going to get negative reviews. And like, my husband was like, are you going to cry? Are you going to be okay? And I literally got it. And I was like, oh, whatever. And I was so proud of myself. I was like, I didn't even care.
Well, and I'll tell you something too, Alice. I've heard from a lot of different authors, whether they're people who are doing traditional publishing, like trying to get an agent, or they are doing what you've done, where it's sort of like when you know you have a whole team behind you, and you have, I mean, gosh, Alice, you have, I think, 9 or 10 people from my company alone who are huge fans of your book. So there's got to be something to be said there for, like, when you have people who really know what they're talking about, who have worked on your book, who have given their input, who have put that confidence into your book, to get a bad review from someone who really just wants to read history of World War II, whatever. You know,
I've actually had a ton of people contact me who say, you know what, I don't really read fantasy or don't read YA fantasy, but I thought I would take a chance on your book. I'm obsessed. And I'm just like, I've converted at least 12 people to read fantasy after reading including my husband's cousin. She read it. She's like, I don't really read fantasy, but you know what? You're my cousin. I adore you. I'm going to read your book. She's like, girl, what is this book? This is amazing. Can I have book 2? Because, you know, we're family. And I did send her book 2. Because we're family. But I'm just like,
she pulled the family card.
She did. I love Kira, though. She's one of my favorite cousins. So I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I will give you the book, girl. Especially because she's pregnant. She's got a newborn now. So I'm like, there's no way she's going to get to read book 2 sitting down when it comes out. So I'm like, you can enjoy it in advance. But
so if she wasn't pregnant and she wasn't your favorite cousin, would she have gotten the book? That's the question that we all need to know. Would it have been a no?
Because I can't separate her from being one of my favorite cousins. So I'm like, she's just because she's my husband's cousin. So I met her through him, and I adore her, like, just adore her. But so I've converted people to fantasy, and I even had one reader who is an ARC reader who contacted me that their son is 13. They're dyslexic and they hate reading. This is the first thing he has willingly read to his mother out loud to practice his reading. He's obsessed with my map. Like, they have pre-ordered the map. I actually printed a giant one for him, and I signed the back of it for him because he's like studying the map every time they read it to figure out where everything is taking place. And I was like, my book is fantasy. My book is like escapism for fun. It's not going to change anybody's life. It changed somebody's life, and that made me cry. I didn't cry about the 2-star if you couldn't care less. The fact that some kid who hates reading wants to read this and loves reading because of this, I cried.
That's beautiful. See, and I think that's, can I just applaud you for that? Because that is just absolutely the right perspective, you know, because there will always be people out there who are not the biggest fans of what you create, and that's fine. You know, there's one of my favorite quotes is that you want to make 50% of the population hate you, because that means that you stand for something.
It's true.
If you haven't put yourself out there to the point where half of what you're putting out, people are saying, I reject it, then you're doing something wrong, actually. You know, you got to stand for something, you know? So ultimately, where the testament lies is in the people who adore you. I mean, I'm also going to say, don't you have someone who got a tattoo based on your book?
I did. Like, she's got her line marks here. She took my quiz. She knows. Actually, it's one of my alpha readers. I assigned her line marks. They're tattooed on her neck where the sorceress would have them now.
Yes.
Yep.
Like that. You told me that early on in your process too. This was, for everyone who's here, this is before the books were published. This is before the books were even out. This is an early reader of Alice's books. Yeah. Who came to Alice and said, you know, okay, there's the tattoos on the sorcerers. What would mine be? Alice said, oh, okay, you'd be this one. This person went out and got a tattoo. A permanent tattoo on the body
because she asked me to send her the actual ones that were going to be used on the website and everything, because I had them custom made. And I will say this too, I got very lucky because I did a lot of work and research and got really nice custom made artwork for like my map and my line marks and that. We were able to use all of that in the book. But I'll be honest, I spent a small fortune on it because I got a commercial level of artwork. Like I went and I paid for commercial rights to all of my artwork. So that's why I have really nice artwork on my website, because I paid for it so that I could have that on my website to use on bookmarks and things. But the map and the line marks and that, I paid to have those commercial level made, which means I own the rights to them. Even though an artist did them, they're mine. And so that's why we got to use the sorcerer line marks as our chapter headings in the book. And I know when I met Lauren, she was like, oh, I told her, I said, oh, I have art. And she's like, great.
Because let me say, this happens all the time. Oh my God, are you ready? Bless their hearts. This happens all the time where authors, they get really excited. They say, oh, I want to commission some artwork. I want to let me create a cover. The book's not even done. And they're like hiring someone off of Fiverr to create a book cover. Bless their hearts. Anyway, they create this stuff, and it's sort of like, okay, and then it's my job to break it to them. Like, I love that you've done that. None of it's usable. Like, it's just not usable. And I'm so sorry. No, you know, like maybe you can hang it up in your office. I don't know. But I see, this is the beautiful thing about you, Alice, is that you ready? This is the honor. You were the only author we've worked with that was actually able to come in with artwork. It was the map and then the line art for the chapter headers, and we were actually able to use it, because most people, I swear, a lot of they hire designers who don't know what's needed for a book. They're hiring it's someone who just knows a little bit of graphic design, not necessarily to book level. There's very specific things that are needed for a book, you know? So like, that's why I always say, if you're interested in doing that kind of stuff, that's great, but like, just wait. If you save your money, you know? But luckily for you, I remember when you said that you had that material, I was sort of like, I was ready with my speech. I was like, okay, so that's great that you've done that. We'll take a look at it.
And I was like, I'll send it to you and you decide. And you were just like, yep, we'll use your art.
But you know what? I actually didn't even say it fully. I was like, let's see it in print. Let's make sure. And it looks great. So you are one of the few.
One thing that I did with my map is because it was just like a sketch for so long. My husband made fun of me because I had this like pencil crown sketch I had done. He's like, you just go get a professional. He sent me to Fiverr for that. He's like, go to Fiverr, find yourself a map. He goes, get 2 done even. 1 in color, 1 black and white. He goes, because this little thing you're using is just ridiculous. And I was like, you're mean. So I went and got 3 different ones made in completely different styles. And then this was my favorite of the 3, which I think is why we could use it, because I did 3 different versions. And then this was the best of the 3. And when you, like with the cover, right, we had 3 to pick from. And I'm like, this is the only one I'm going to send you because it's the only one I think will work in a book and it's the nicest. And for my line art that I did for my sorcerer ones, like this was the Alex one, for her point of view, I had this done by an actual artist. Like she sells paintings and that. And she is the friend of my other alpha reader. And so her name is Casey, and she has like, if you want to see her stuff, it's on Rallybird on Instagram, but she does amazing art, and she also sews and does other stuff in that. But she also designed my author logo, and my Griffin Press logo. But I sent her to my website and I said, I want an author logo. I'm tired of my face being on here for now, because I had a lot of creepy men for a while harassing me. And she looked at my website and said, you're whimsical, and then made me the perfect author logo just by looking at my website. So it's one of those cases, like with you, Lauren, where she knew me like that. And so when I went to her, I said, I had like just simple images I had bought from one of those like image websites for my line marks. I'm like, this is what I'm going with. Can you make them the feel of my website and the feel of my map? And she said, oh yeah. And so she sketched each one by hand and sent them to me, and we adjusted thicknesses of lines and things like that and made them have that whimsical feel. But also I said, these need to be burned on someone's skin. They need to be outlined so that you could burn it on someone's skin and they would know what that is and be able to identify it. And so she went in knowing the background, that it would have to be something you could have tattooed or burned on your skin that would still be visible. So it needed to be simple and clean lines and that. And that's what I got. And I think that's why we were able to use it, because it wasn't super complicated. It was exactly what it needed to be for the story. And I needed it on the website to make the sorcerer line page so people could actually visualize what I was talking about in the book. But I think because I went in with such specific details for Casey, that we were able to. Now someone has another tattoo idea. I'm actually getting the actual line mark tattoo. This guy, I'm getting, where is he? This one. I'm getting this tattoo because that is the series line mark. Yep. I'm getting that one tattooed on me because that is the head, the heart, and the air, and that is the head, the heart, and the air logo.
I love it. Well, let's go ahead and say, so as we were saying before, so the ebooks for The Head, the Heart, and the Air, which is book 1 in the series, is out now. The paperback and the hardcover are both available for pre-order. So if you really want,
right now. We don't have the cover for the hardback yet, so it's not up for pre-order yet.
Well, there you go. If you want the paperback, you can pre-order that. It's available.
The signed hardcovers are on pre-order on my website, but the general hardcover is not yet on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Book or whatever, all those different websites, because it's on Barnes & Noble, it's on Walmart.com online.
Yep.
Like, how is that how is it there? I don't know, but Lauren put it there, so it's there. So it's magical.
It's there.
But
that's exactly it.
Prices, so go look where they're all available.
So if you want to read it now, I'd say go ahead. It's on Kindle only for the ebook.
It's on Kindle Unlimited and Kindle Unlimited.
It's Kindle Unlimited, and you can also buy it on its own if you are not part of Kindle Unlimited, or you can pre-order that physical copy. Same with The Spare Who Became the Heir, which again is the prequel. I'll go ahead and say you can read it before the first book or after. It really works either way. Sometimes it's a little bit more fun to read it beforehand, but either way, it is
the reviews are conflicted. Readers have said you should definitely read it before, and others were like, I read it after, it's fine. So, I think it's, if you want to know the names of the characters going into the book, this is beneficial because it will introduce you to the main characters, and they're like not only the main group but also the main secondary characters as well. So you'll have a bit more familiarity of who everybody is if you read this first. But if you're one of those people who can just dive into a story and remember like 15 names, no problem, you're good. Just jump right in.
AKA not me.
Well, I do have them in the back too, right? We have the kingdom breakdown. So even if you're like, wait, what kingdom is this person from again? That's something I got when Shannon made me read, not Shannon, Sam made me read Fire of the Orange Tree. So I have the kingdom breakdown and the characters and like who's the general and who's the king and the queen and all that. And I did that for Warren and Dayton because that's what they did in Fire of the Orange Tree. Except there it was 25 pages long and it was literally a paragraph for each person. I didn't want to go that far.
Too far. Too
much work.
So if anyone has any questions, I'd say, or even Alice, if you have any questions or other things you wanted to bring up. Otherwise, Alice, was there anything else you wanted to chat about today?
No.
I think we covered a lot. Yeah. So if anyone wants an idea of the timeline, we met in January of 2021, and here we are in June with the book released.
Yeah.
So
I think it was halfway through my journey that I met Lauren. So because I started in December of 2019. So I guess it was like 14 months after I started writing the book that I met Lauren and started the process. And then we had like 16 months. It took us.
Yeah. to get through this whole thing.
Yeah.
And we're continuing on. We are working on book 2 right now. We're also working on book 3.
Yes, you have
right?
book 3 is in developmental edits with Sam right now, and book 2 just finished line edits. So I've been working with SE on the publishing or on the marketing stuff and that. So all the inquiring minds keep asking me, Lauren, when is book 2 going to come out?
Oh me, are you looking at me for that,
Lauren? Do you know how many people every day somebody asks me? Every day.
That's the opportunity to be mysterious.
I'm going to tell them to start.
You got to be that mysterious.
I'm just going to tell them to message you. I'll be like, go message Lauren.
Do not. You're going to find yourself without a publisher. You say, where's Lauren? Not here.
No, you won't leave me. I know you won't.
That's true. Well, you've already made it clear. Once you like someone, you're in there. So I think it's more that I can't lose you at this point. You'll track me down. No, we're going to be starting the publishing process very soon. I'm very excited for book 2, and we're just going to keep it going.
Book 2 is awesome. Each one gets more exciting. My husband's favorite so far is book 3. A lot of stuff happens in book 3.
Ooh, I like it. All right, well, if anyone here has any questions, comments on the whatever this is, Instagram Live or IGTV at this point, and we'll write in. But otherwise, thank you so much, Alice. This has been so fun.
This was so much fun.
Yeah. All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.